This is the third time that I've tried to record this. I'm gonna try it again. My computer is acting crazy. So it's Monday, November 20th, 5:17 a.m. now. I woke up from a dream about 15 minutes ago now. I woke up because I was dying in the dream. Typical. But that's not where it starts. When the dream starts, I'm actually watching a TV show. But it's not a TV show in the sense that I'm sitting in my living room and I can see a TV and it's on TV. It's just that, it's just that dream thing where I just know in my head somehow magically that I'm watching a TV show, and I'm not a character in the story. I'm just like this floating presence with no body, just watching the events unfold from the perspective of 10 feet away from the characters. But it's cool because there's cool cinematography stuff going on, and in my head I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's good cinematography, and I know that it's a show. But I'm watching the first episode of a new TV show. So yeah, the way that it starts is, at first there's a character intro sort of one of the characters of her life before she gets wrapped up in this adventure. But she is someone who used to be a cop and ended up really not liking it and quit, but she's sort of and now she's working all these weird odd jobs just trying to make ends meet, but she's sort of having a hard time not still sort of being a cop, because she just has that in her, I guess. But her character intro is she's doing an odd job for a guy, watching his animals, and she hates how he's taking care of them because he's treating them cruelly, and so she ends up taking him to court and turning him in and saying here's this evidence, he treats his animals horribly, and then she's successful and actually she gets him thrown in jail or something, and so then it cuts to later on. She's walking through a forest, a very pretty sun-dappled, misty forest, and it's maybe in the morning or the afternoon, it's daytime, yeah, she's walking through this forest, she's walking very determinedly, we don't know why she's walking through it. The camera cuts and shows that there are two other people walking through the same forest, and they're kind of converging on the same area in the forest, but they don't know that any of the other people are there. And the camera's kind of cutting between scenes showing each one of them as they progress. The two other people are, so the woman is a 30-year-old woman, and there's a guy who's a bit younger, and there's a little boy who's maybe 10 or 12, and they're all walking through the forest. And then I see what they're walking towards, and they're walking towards a very strange creature, and I'm going to try to describe it for you. It's a fantasy-looking humanoid creature. It kind of looks like an old man. It's very wrinkly, and it's bald except for a few hairs, and it's floating, not flying. I mean, it's flying, but it doesn't really, actually it does have wings. It has very tiny wings, but wings that don't make sense to make it fly. So it's just kind of floating, and I'm pretty sure that it's based on a character from a comic that I'm reading, but which you probably don't know. So anyway, I just described it. Oh, and he's naked, except for a pair of pants. It doesn't have a shirt on. Yeah, and he looks very grumpy with a heavy brow. So anyway, yeah, all these three characters are walking towards this weird floating gnome man, and so eventually they arrive, and once they get close enough to him, he sort of casts his spell on them, and they go under his control, which I guess they sort of already were because they were finding him in the forest. But you can kind of see, like, as they get closer to him, you can see that, like, something changes in their eyes. And it's very subtle, but it's just, like, they become, like, kind of sparkly, and you can see, like, more highlights in them that, like, shouldn't actually be there. And so that kind of signifies that they're under his control. But they don't act weird. Like, they don't do anything weird besides that. They just seem completely like themselves other than that, and that they're know that they have to go meet this floating gnome dude and do what he says. So once they all are there, actually he kind of meets them one at a time, but like in quick succession, but he kind of gathers them up, and then he like gives them different features, and then the way that he gives them these things like reminds me of a video game. So maybe this thing is part video game too, because I feel like I remember seeing like little like stats like pop up and like appear. But one of the things that he gives everyone, or the only thing that I remember giving everyone, is he has a little wand, and he uses his wand and like puts, it's so gross. Actually, this is weird. I remember feeling how this feels, even though I was not one of those characters somehow. But he gives everyone a back full of eggs, like kind of like how like a mother spider will have like a big back full of like little spider eggs. Like everyone's back gets covered in eggs, and for us, for the humans, they're maybe about like that big, but they're like kind of slimy. You feel there's like something wriggling around inside them that's like covering their entire back, and then they're all carrying these eggs on their back. And I think that they're all like under his command, so like they're for something, and he can make them pop and like explode whenever he wants. It's really gross. Let's see. Okay, so then there's 3 people that kind of walking through the forest. Oh yeah. And then it sort of cuts to like the next day, and I don't remember exactly what all happened on the first day, but they were helping him with something. But then on the next day, so what's really interesting, it's not that interesting, but he takes control of them, but like I said, they still have their normal mind and memories and everything. They're only there for a short time. This is what happened. They're only there for a while, and then he tells them to go home and like go about their normal lives, because it's very important for them to keep this connection a secret. They have to go back, live their normal lives, and make everyone think that everything's normal and that this didn't happen. But they're going to be going back to this forest like every day to do this guy's bidding. So they go back, and the next day, like, the little boy and the man are like both wearing sunglasses, and the guy looks at the woman and he's like, I can't believe you didn't wear sunglasses, like, how stupid are you? Because they all have like weird eyes, and he's like, you should really, like wear sunglasses, because how else are you supposed to hide this, like, or make it seem normal? And she's just like, oh yeah, I should have worn sunglasses. But anyway, so it's the second day, and on the second day, they're all in the forest, and I don't remember everything that happens, but one of the first things that happens, actually, I think, is that they're all in the forest, and the place they're converged on is sort of like, it's like a little opening, like a little clearing, not where you can walk through, but because of the way that the trees are shaped, where you can kind of see a little circle like through the trees, and you can see like way far into this clearing, like in the forest, and they're kind of looking in that general direction when this really scary dude like walks past and looks at them like right in the like stares at them. But let me tell you what this really scary dude is, because he's also really hilarious. So he is like, he's basically a life-size, walking, talking, black plastic skeleton with like a bunch of glitter and like sequins and other decorations like crappily like glued all over him. And so he basically looks like a not very good Halloween decoration, like Party City. But in the dream, he's really scary. So he walks past and he looks at everyone. So I had to stop and start over because my computer was freaking out. But I'm going to pick up where I left off. So there is a plastic, bedazzled, black skeleton who was alive, and everyone sees him and he looks straight at them, and they're all like horrified because he looks straight at them and he's so scary. But after that happens, the floating gnome guy talks to them and he's like, oh, don't be concerned, like, you're totally fine, as long as he only looks at you once, because he looked straight at them once, and then he like kept walking. And he says, as long as he only looked at you once, you're totally fine. And then he starts rambling off this long sort of like combination poem, song, and like math problem, and it's about depending on how many times this fabled bedazzled skeleton looks at you, you'll either die or not die. And it's very long and complicated and has all these like math problems in it, but basically what I get out of it at the end of it, when he gets done saying it, is that basically if he looks at you 1 time, 3 times, or 11 times, you're fine. Anything else, you're gonna die. But if he looks at you that many times, you're fine. You only look at them 1 time. So they're like, okay. And then there's really like no other explanation after that, but it kind of, so after that, the scene cuts, and it cuts to the skeleton's life. And at that point, I realized that I am a character in the story, because I'm the skeleton's girlfriend. And the skeleton is kind of laying down like this, in the grass in like a beautiful romantic park setting. And he's looking up into the sky, you know, kind of dreamily, and I'm there like beside him, but kind of looking down on him, and we're kind of in an embrace, loosely. But I'm just like normal. I think I'm just me. I think I'm just like a normal human. But I'm this guy's girlfriend, and he looks at me and he's like, babe, what's wrong? Like, you've just been acting like really weird all day. Like, is everything okay? Like the last job that we did, like, you're just like, something's going on. Like, you should talk to me. And I'm looking at him and I like realize what's wrong. And I realize suddenly that something's like really wrong. Like I'm in this body, but I'm not the person that I'm supposed to be. And I say something weirdly like poetic and dumb. What did I say? I said, I say to him, I feel like I've accidentally wandered off the path of fate, and now I can never go back. And then I realized that, like, that's true, and what's happening is that I'm doing that by, like, realizing that I'm not supposed to be there, and that I'm not exactly who I thought I was, and basically as that's happening, I start feeling my chest pound harder and harder, my heart pound harder and harder in my chest, and like actually like getting bigger, and then I realize like towards the end of it that it's actually exploding, and I'm dying, and that's when I was hyperventilating and woke up. Yeah, so I sort of did die. Anyway, that was my dream.